Hey everyone, how's it going? Again, thank you to everyone who's tuning in. I've already seen a couple of people in the chat saying that it is 2 a.m. for them. Thank you. I know what it's like. I work remotely as well. I'm located in Australia. The rest of my team, just chatting to Leah, the rest of my team is in the US. So I often have finished stuff at 1 a.m. and then jumped on a 1:30 a.m. phone call. Or even probably the best one was when they're like, hey, we want to record a session with you. Are you happy to do 5 a.m.? And I was like, oh gosh, there's no way I can get up and be awake at 5 a.m. So I literally just stayed up the whole night. And then jumped on the call at 5 a.m., finished it up at about 9 a.m. and then went to bed for 4 or 5 hours before I had to be on another call at 12 midday the same day. So I feel your pain. So I know what it's like. But yeah, welcome everyone. I'm Mish. I'm the developer community manager at GitHub. And yeah, really excited to be here with you all and share some of the cool things I'm doing. So Leah's told me a bit about what you're doing in the program, how you're all halfway, you're working on some hackathons, contributing to some open source software. So I'm here to talk to you about some cool things. So yeah, so as I said, I'm the developer community manager at GitHub. I get to do some really cool things. Usually I get to fly around the world and give talks like this, except unfortunately we're all here in isolation. So that's fun. So yeah, I'm doing everything from my bedroom. Woohoo, go me. So a lot of people will know me as the hackathon queen, and so I'm really excited you're all doing hackathons and stuff at the moment. So yeah, it's really cool that you're all here working on cool projects, open source projects, hack days, things like that. So yeah, I've done over. The reason I get called the hackathon queen, it's not a self-proclaimed title as some people think. The community kind of gave it to me after I did over 20 hackathons in the space of 9-10 months. Actually, I think it was less than that. Now I've done over 80. So if you want tips on hackathons, save those for the question time. But for the start, these are going to be some top tips on using GitHub and some cool things. So I'm assuming you're all familiar with GitHub and using GitHub already because you see me all doing yep, Leah's not it, me, cool. So I'm going to dive straight in and yeah, do some cool things. So first one, I'm kind of going backwards. I've left the more kind of important things towards the end, but really these are kind of really in any order. So just write them down as you feel. It's not you must do this first and then this one last. It's yeah, I kind of just did them built them up hype. So yeah, you might find that the middle one resonates really well for you and then the other ones don't. So the first thing is reminders. So if you haven't put reminders on your GitHub posts and teams, go and do it. There's a really good way, especially if you're involved in, this is probably more once you get involved in lots of open source projects and you're in heaps of different organizations, you definitely want to set up reminders. So what you can do is you can set up reminders from different orgs. So you can go to a particular org that you're part of, go to the team that you're part of in that org and set a reminder just that org. So when you get when that org is mentioned or you're commented, you'll get a particular reminder on your Slack. So you have to have your Slack integration for this one. As I said, this one's might not be so relevant now, but if you get really involved in open source, you look at some people's GitHub profiles and they've got 50 projects or 50 orgs they're part of, and you're well, how do they keep up to date with everything? One of the ways they do that is through reminders. Also, speaking of when you get involved more in open source and you're in lots of orgs, you might have also started experiencing it now, is how do you actually find stuff on GitHub? So when you're part of a team or you're doing a project, how do you find all the things you work on? So how do you find an issue that you opened or find a thing that you were commented on or something you were tagged in? It's kind of how do I find these things? So a little while ago, I made this thing called Fuzzy Finder. So if you literally press T in any repo that you're in, you can search that code. So this little GIF is just showing you what like how it works, and literally it's just so easy. So if you're looking for a file that's called test, or you're looking for a file that contains the word test, this is a really, really easy way to do it. I find this, especially like if you've got a project with like, you know, you often like fork or clone a project, it'll be like, you have now copied like 1,495 files. So you're like, oh, how do I find the thing I want? So this is a really good way to do it. Yeah, it's just press T. Also on searching, if you're doing like working a lot with issues and things, one of the things you can do is you can search an issue or like all the different issues, and you can put different parameters or search terms within the issue. So here I've got an example. This is me. I just searched a repo as part of this is OBS that I'm part of. So it's like, is an issue. So I'm searching for everything that is an issue. I'm only searching for the things that are open. I'm searching for my name. The reason I'm searching for my name is because either I am wanting to find something that I opened. So it'll give me anything that I opened. It'll give me anything where I'm mentioned or anything that I've like commented on. This is a really good way to like search all the things that like I'm part of. The next thing that will help you with working in collaboration with teams, working with different open source projects, and also working with yourself as well. I actually use this one for myself, is project boards. They were like Leo and everyone else, are you kind of like familiar with project boards? I'm kind of like looking at all of you on my screen and kind of looking for any nods or anything, but most of your camera's turned off, which is totally fine. But yeah, project boards is a great one to work with. It's a really good way to help with like triaging your issues. So this one's got here like issues to track, new things to get out, and fixes that we need to upgrade. You can set up a project board literally for anything. Like I have my own project board just for my life. Like I literally called it like Mish Life stuff. And I have like a project board that has like, here's my to-do list, here's my GitHub to-do list, and here's all like the things that I want to buy online. Here's all the, you know, like books I want to read, and like I'm a big Pokemon Go fan, so I literally have a whole column just like Pokemon Go, like Pokemon that I am yet to catch, different trade lists and things like that. But so you can literally create it for anything. And what's cool about project boards is you can add, like this one here is just all linked to different issues. So if you obviously link an issue like this one here, like just link the URL to come up with like with a little like preview of what it looks like. So this one's got like, you know, Git seems to break and it was opened by this person. Or this one's like, you got the tags on here. Labels are amazing. If you're not using labels, go and use them. They are so, so good. So labels can help you with like identifying things really quickly, but also on your project board, you can add like a comment or a card. So if you're using something like Trello or another kind of project board that you'll probably notice that you can just like add a comment or like add a blank card that's not linked to anything. You can do that on here as well. It's like super useful. The next thing for using GitHub top tips, this one comes straight from one of our security people, and it is literally enabling two-factor authentication. One of our security team said, if everyone enables two-factor authentication, it will increase the security of all of your stuff by at least 70%. And then if everyone did it, our security team would probably be out of a job. Not actually, but you know, like it is literally the most, like people are like, well, how do I do it? Do I have like antivirus scanners? Do I have like, you know, making sure my dependencies are up to date? Yes, you should do that. And like, you know, but then everyone's like, well, how else do I secure it? Do I make sure that like certain people can't like have maintainer access? Or it's like literally the best way to secure your account is enable two-factor authentication. So if you haven't done it, go and do it. One of the best ways to enable two-factor authentication is use an app. Don't use SMS. There was like there was a situation where somebody was using SMS as their authenticator and they were in a cinema and they got a text message from a authentication provider. They're like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm in the movies, I didn't do anything. They just ignored it, and someone else is in the cinema and like basically piggybacked off that text message, grabbed the code, and unlocked their account. So fun fact, SMS is not that secure. So if you have an account or like an app, there's like Okta, Auth, authority, like there's so many of them. Highly recommend getting an app to secure your account. That doesn't go just for GitHub either. It goes to like everything. I use a password manager. All my things are set up with two-factor authentication. Literally the best way to secure your account. So go and do it. The next one, for lots of you are contributing to open source projects at the moment. This one is a big one to think about when you're starting to build your own open source project, or you're starting to build your own like code bases. Right now you're probably all contributing, but really keep this in mind when you start looking at opening up your own stuff. So the next thing's all about your own. So who's heard of the bus factor? Have you heard of the bus factor, Leah?
I have not. Has anyone in our chat over here? If you guys, you can unmute or throw it into the chat as well.
So it's not a GitHub thing. This is like a global like kind of tech thing. We often use like the bus factor, but you'll often hear it used in like startup context as well. So the bus factor is like how many people need to be on a bus and the bus to get hit and everyone dies for your project to like basically be dead. So you know when people say like, you might have heard in like corporate, like, oh, well, Lee, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, who's going to take over your project? Or if you get hit by a bus today, you know, is everything going to be okay at work? So we call like the bus factor in open source, how many people need to like basically die or be taken out of commission for your project to essentially be redundant. And so, for example, if you are the only person maintaining your code and you are the only person who is building this code base, the bus factor is 1. It only takes you to be put out of commission for any kind of reason for the whole code to like basically fall apart. So number 1 tip for if you're starting your own code base is add a co-owner. This means that like if something goes wrong, you've got at least one other person who can take over, who can maintain things, like not even like big things. So say if you go like, you know, away on a family holiday and you're like, all your stuff breaks, like, you know, you don't have to be the one that does like, you know, stops your family holiday to go and like, you know, fix this thing, like you just co-owners. So you'll notice like with a lot of open source projects, especially the big ones, they'll have multiple maintainers and multiple co-owners to like reduce the bus factor. I love it. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
And so we do have that formally using just written documentation of where you are in projects too. Is super.
Yep. So it's called bus factor. Fun fact, everyone. Yeah. So add a co-owner. Next thing, if you're opening up a project or an open source project, make sure you choose a license. This means that like you say that your code or your project is able to be used by other people. So you'll notice a lot of you are contributing to open source projects. You'll notice in like a lot of their files, there'll be a license in there somewhere. There's really easy ways to find it. Literally, there's a website called chooselicense.com, and you can go, and this is like literally a screenshot straight from them. You can choose what works for you. So like most of them are going to be like, I work in a community, and you need your license to be used by community. This just like removes any kind of like legal issues, allows everyone to use your code and to freely contribute to your code, and there's no issues. So definitely add a README add a license to your code. This is like one thing that we kind of like is like kind of mandatory when we work with open source projects. Like you have to have a license so other people can use it. I kind of like hinted at it, but yes, add a README. So if you don't have a README, people don't know what your project is doing, why they're there, what they can do, and like literally you can add a README to anything. So I've got this is my README from my GitHub like a boss, like this literally exact demo. I just wrote a couple of things like if you end up finding this, because like a whole bunch of code in there for like demos and things that I do. So like I'll put like, you know, this is an open repo for all things GitHub demos. So if somebody comes along and sees this, they know exactly what it is, what they can do with it, and things like that. So yeah, so make sure you add a README, really easy. Discussions. This is one that is going to be absolutely amazing for community. So the reason we added this, not everyone will have access to this yet, but it's coming for everyone. But what you'll notice when you start working in open source, you'll notice that lots of things get talked about and stuff will happen in issues, and then all of a sudden someone will go, this is a much bigger thing. Why are we talking about a new feature or adding something in when this is a issue for something else? So the idea behind issues was that like you opened up an issue if you needed something fixed or a new feature added. But you'll notice, like reading through a lot of issues, you'll be like, hang on, this is not really an issue. This is more of a Slack conversation, or vice versa. You'll have all these conversations in Slack and you go, oh, this needs to be an issue. So what we've done is we've introduced discussions, which is a way for you to have all these discussions separate from your issues. And then if you find that one of your discussions is like a really good discussion about a feature, and then you all settle on actually building that feature, you can transfer that discussion into a issue and vice versa. So if you go, oh, this issue that we opened up that was meant to fix this thing turned into this giant big discussion thread. So let's change that. So the biggest thing about discussions versus issues, you can kind of notice in this image is like you have threaded replies. So things are like a lot easier to see. It becomes more of a conversation, becomes more like a forum. So hopefully you'll notice on some of the open source projects that you're contributing to, some of them will have discussions already enabled, which is awesome. If you haven't already got it, GitHub Mobile, get it. It's really, really good. You can do a whole bunch of stuff on your, literally on your phone without having to open up your desktop. The best one was one of my colleagues, B. Dougie. He was like, yeah, I had GitHub on my mobile, and when I was opening issues and doing things. So we had a big hackathon earlier this year in April for GitHub, and the way we ran the hackathon, it was all done through GitHub. He was like, yeah, it was great. I could just roll over in bed and just go, yeah, that one's approved, that one's approved, that one's approved, in an issue, and go, yep, and then merge all the pull requests on his phone, just put his phone back down and go back to sleep. It's really handy. Also, if you're on the go, how many times are you oh, I'm on the go, and then you're like, oh, I just need to respond to that really quick comment. I can't because I need to open up everything. GitHub Mobile, get it, is really good. Something we've launched really recently, which I highly encourage you all to do, because GitHub has become the developer's LinkedIn, right? So a lot of people, if you're getting hired by a company, they'll go and look at your GitHub profile and see what you've contributed to. So we made that profile way cooler now. So your profile, this is, again, my colleague's B. Dougie's. He's made his look really cool. He called this the new MySpace, which is, I think that's hilarious. You can customize your profile now, all via a README doc. So you'll notice the old profile had all your contribution graph and a whole bunch of stuff. You can now have this right at the top. So you can say you can highlight your followers. You can put a cute little GIF there. So he's put that GIF in there. You can do some really cool things. So go check it out, play around with it. Some people are doing some really cool things with it. So yeah, it's kind of cool. So yeah. Then get involved. A lot of you are already involved in the community anyway, but there is a whole giant community forum, github.com/ I think it's github.com community or something like that. But yeah, if you just Google GitHub community, you'll find the community forums. You can find everything on there. People are talking about, welcome announcements. If you scroll down, there's so much cool stuff. So get involved in the community. We have a whole bunch of other community stuff as well. So we've got the community forums. We've got Open Source Friday, which is opensourcefriday.com is a website that we encourage people to contribute to open source. There's a whole lot of documentation on that website, on the opensourcefriday.com, on best practices for maintainers, best practices for contributors, and how to go about being part of a GitHub community. So check that out. It's really cool. Yeah, it's just a really, really good way to get involved. And I know a lot of you are already contributing, but if you go and check it out, it's really cool. Another one of B. Dougie's top tips is start everything. So when you come across a repo or something that you start it. like I'll often be searching for something. I'm like, okay, well, I need a way to like run my OBS, do my Zoom calls. I'm just going to Google it. Oh, look, it just happens to be a project on GitHub. And then I start it. That way, not only does it like support them, but it allows me to like search for things much easier. Also, if you star things, the things that you star, there's like a whole like algorithm that happens in the background. And what happens is that when you're searching for new projects, it's going to come up more with things that you've starred or things that are more like your stars. So if you find anything that you're interested in, star it, because then it just helps build out your profile and GitHub. So totally do that. Next one is dark theme. So this is my profile. I haven't set up my cool as Raby thing yet, but get dark theme for GitHub. I'm pretty sure mobile version has a dark theme, but GitHub desktop has a dark theme. And there's also, if you're using it in your break, like I'm a Twitch streamer and I do open source code and like code writing and code building on my Twitch streams. We'll often drop in like, oh my gosh, you have GitHub dark theme. How do I get it? This is amazing. Oh my gosh. And like literally it's just my browser. So there's a whole bunch of like browser plugins that you can make everything dark theme. So one of them is like Dark Reader. Otherwise there's some specific browser plugins for GitHub. So if you just search for them, get them. A lot of people like dark theme. One of my friends who happens to be an SE at GitHub loves the dad jokes. So he's always like, well, why do developers like dark theme? It's like, oh, because light attracts the bugs. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. So yeah, grab dark theme. It's really cool. Then the final one, what was that? Sorry, Leah?
It looks like we have somebody that's already using some stars, which is really great.
Woohoo!
An auto-generating one to show my recent PRs. So that's
awesome. I love it. I love it. So cool. And then the final one before we jump into the questions is Learning Lab. So if you haven't heard of Learning Lab, it's literally lab.github.com. It is literally the best place to learn anything GitHub. There's everything on the Learning Lab, from like how to open up your first issue, how to comment on an issue, how to do merges and pull requests, how to do GitHub actions, how to build stuff and put it on the marketplace, how to do GitHub pages, like literally anything you want to do, from like the most basic thing to like the most complicated thing, is all in GitHub Learning Lab. One of the really cool things about Learning Lab too is our Learning Lab itself is actually open source. So there's training and projects and stuff on there that aren't even just GitHub built and run. So like other people can build their own training labs and put them on our GitHub and use our Learning Lab. Like it's all done. It's really cool. Like once you give Learning Lab, or give your GitHub access to Learning Lab, a bot just helps you out with everything. Like it's really cool. You'll see all your issues being like opened and closed, and you're like only in the repo, in the Learning Lab repo. Don't worry, it's not going to break everything else. But yeah, it's really cool. Like I do every time I want to do something on GitHub, I'm just like, oh, I don't know how to do it. I'm just like, oh, let's go check out the Learning Lab. Oh, look, we have a Learning Lab for this. So it's a really, really great tool to use. So go and check out the Learning Lab, lab.github.com. And with that, they're all my main top tips for getting started. So question time for people.
Yeah, so if you guys want to either type out your questions, it might be easier though just to unmute and ask some questions. I know that many of you obviously are using this consistently, so feel free to ask away. I know one question that we do get a lot from our fellows is really, where the process getting started into GitHub is interesting. So how can you give a little bit more background on that, and how, if they're not as familiar, where they could start if they needed more context?
So one of the best places to start is literally just start doing it. I know everyone's always like, oh, I'm worried about this, or like, how do I do that? It's just like, literally just start. Just open up a GitHub account and just like start looking and browsing at things that you're interested in. One of the best places to start, as I said, is like the opensourcefriday.com. If you're wanting to contribute to open source, there's a whole lot of tips, guides, usage, how to start, where to start. And the best thing is like start with what you're interested in. Like if you're interested in space exploration and robotics, go look at what NASA's doing in open source space. Like that's all freely available on GitHub. So yeah, do what you're interested in. Don't just do what other people tell you to do or what seems to be like, you know, the cool thing, because it's, yeah, like do what you're interested in.
All right, so we have some more in the chat over here. So GitHub has had a lot of new features roll out recently, or some changes. So can you go over some of those cool new changes or features? And then, you know, if possible, they'd love to see a sneak peek, but I don't know what that looks like for you.
I showed them all basically. So the first one's the README that we just did. So you can now have a really cool profile. Second one we announced, not in any particular order. The other one we announced is discussions. So we announced discussions at Satellite this year, which is amazing. So you can, you know, have all that triage and threaded replies and open up conversations and things like that. The other thing we did really recently, we launched GitHub Mobile, which is available on both iOS and Android. What else did I talk about in here? That's the other probably big one that it isn't on here because you can't quite get it yet for most people is code spaces. So let me show you a little bit of code spaces because it is publicly launched and announced because we announced it as Satellite. All right, so what you can do now with code spaces is we've basically given every developer the opportunity to spin up a fully working dev environment from any browser anywhere around the world, which is really cool. So if I open up this one in CodeSpace, I have access to CodeSpace again because I have it enabled, but not everyone can get this. So any repo you go to once you've got code spaces, it's coming later this year for everyone. Any repo that you've got access to that's got code, you can literally click this button and click open in code spaces. I'm going to open a new code space so you can see how quickly it spins up. So this is spinning up a fully working dev environment right now. It's using, a lot of people are like, oh, VS Code. It's like, yes, it's using VS Code. Fun fact for people who know about VS Code. But yeah, so it's saying it's preparing my code space for me. Again, I'm in Australia. Our internet isn't the greatest. If you're in a place with better internet, this will go way quicker. But literally what it's doing is it's spinning up this virtual machine for me to work on. It's adding in every single dependency that I need. And it's adding in all the requirements and every single thing I need to start contributing to this code. The thing why everyone is so excited about this is because it's literally groundbreaking for being able to contribute to a project and develop on the go. So as long as you have an internet connection, essentially, you can basically now contribute to code anywhere around the world. Whereas before it was kind of like, all right, well, you have to spend 2 weeks waiting for your dev machine to come. We have to wait till you get all the software installed onto it. Then we have to give you access to all the required repos you need. Then we'll have to give you access to dependencies on those repos you need. Then we'll have to set all these things up. Then you'll probably have to wait for like different people to approve different stuff. And by this stage, it's been like 4 months. Either that's 4 months into a job and you haven't written any line of code that contributes to the company, or you've spent however long waiting to contribute to this open source project and you've lost interest. So yeah, this is just really cool. It was really funny because my boss, who's a little bit older than me, is like, oh, look, there we go, it's all done. So this whole virtual environment is already spun up, ready for me to use. My boss is who's a little bit older than me, is like, you kids these days, you have it so good. You literally click a button and stuff happens. So you see down the bottom, it's saying opening remote. So it's opening up the server for me. But he's like, yeah, you can click a button these days and stuff happens. And it's yeah, pretty much. We are so lucky. Whereas, yeah, before you had to wait anywhere between 2 weeks and 4 months to go. It's saying failed to connect. So that's just my dodgy internet. But if I refresh it, it'll usually work. So yeah, that's Code Spaces. It works really good. If I had more time, I would do like a full-on demo, but I can drop you a link actually to the demo that I did. I did it on Twitch as part of Microsoft Build. So I'll grab that link for you all now. And I'll see if there's any other questions that come in while I'm grabbing this.
Yeah. When would that roll out to, or have everyone have access to that?
So we've rolled out beta. So if you request to be part of the beta program, you can jump into it. We're slowly giving you access to each different waves of the beta. So yeah, if you're interested, go sign up. Just check out like github.com/codespaces, or like literally just Google GitHub Codespaces, and you'll find like the beta sign up there. Just see if I can grab this. I do a lot of stuff on Twitch, as you can see. It'll pop up somewhere. I'll grab that for you and I'll link it back. Is there any other?
Yeah, we have so one question. There are no stupid questions. That's how they started off the stupid question, but they wanted to know, how do you get a green screen set up with the code in the background?
Be a Twitch streamer. Yeah, so I basically have everything set up. I'm working. I've got a green screen. You basically need a green screen to do what I'm doing. I can't find that thing right now, so I will totally find it for you later. But yeah, basically you have a green screen. So I've got a $8 piece of fabric from Spotlight. If you're in Australia, know what Spotlight is. Otherwise, it's literally just like, an arts and crafts store. And then I'm using OBS, which is what I use to stream. And I have a plugin, which coincidentally is found on GitHub, called OBS Virtual Camera. And it sets up all my OBS scenes as virtual cameras. And instead of selecting a USB source for my Zoom camera, I select my OBS virtual camera source. Fun fact, it only works on Windows, so go Windows. All my colleagues have Macs because GitHub is a very Mac-centric place, and I am very much against Macs. I like to find cool things and show them that it's only available on Windows.
Very cool. All right, we had another question is, what are the most wanted key points on a project's README according to recruiter senior developer?
On a project's README or?
Yes, projects.
So like when you go to like an open source project and it's got a README file?
Can we get some clarification on that question? You can unmute as well. Any personal projects, it looks like.
Oh, okay, so any main project. All right, let's have a look. I just jump into OBS because I like OBS. It's open source. So if you have a look at OBS here, this is their README file. So this is a really good example of like what a README file is and what it should be like. So it's like, here it is. Here's a link to it. You can put all these cool tags up here at the moment. So there's nearly 23,000 people on the Discord right now. These are all like plugins. So these are like updating in real time. But yeah, README is like, what is the thing that you're doing? Like, what is it for? Some links to your website, documentations, forums, instructions, how to do this one's really key. API and developer documentation. And then how to contribute. So if you'd like to help or fund or sponsor the project, you can do so by Patreon, blah, blah, blah. If you want to contribute to the actual code, look here and then read the coding and commit guidelines. So this is a really good example. Again, it's super simple, but it's literally like what it is. Here's some links to documentation and like why you want to be part of it or contribute to it. So this is their contribution guidelines. So I've got all these like guidelines on like coding, committing, and like all these like extra links and stuff like how do you build things, track bugs, how do you collaborate with the community. They've obviously got a Discord server, so that's how they build all their community. So that's a really, really good example of README and how to set up a really good project file.
Is there any difference between level of project that you, or I guess time consuming or type of issue that you would need more content on your README?
What do they mean?
It was more my question of just if you have a bigger issue that you're addressing, do you need to have additional content on your README?
It depends. Like, it depends what you want. Like, do you want, I mean, is it something that like people don't know about, like the black hole project? Is it something where you need a whole lot of context and background? Like, your README is whatever you want it to be, really. Just have the main points in it, have like what it is, how to contribute, and like other links. So you might, rather than having like all the background information in the README, because then people are scrolling for days, you might like just have links like OBS did. Have links more to the background of the project, who the people are behind it, etc., etc. So you can really set up, it's almost like a landing, like about page for a website. And I also found this one. So here it is, GitHub Like a Boss. This is my other Like a Boss one. So I'll drop the link to the chat. This is for the one I did about on code spaces. So I hosted it for Microsoft Build. And that's a whole demo on code spaces and how it works. There's a lot of interaction because it's a Twitch chat. So it does go for like an hour and a half with like all this interaction happening at the same time.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We'll share that along with those as well outside the chat. Another question came in. Would you prefer working on open source or closed source as a full-time position?
It depends. I mean, that's like saying, do you want to be a full-time Twitch streamer? It's like, depends. Like, are you working on a big open source project that is funded? Because a lot of like projects these days are funded. It's like, you got to think about, if you're working on something full-time, how are you getting money? So it really depends on like whether you can sustain yourself working in that position. I'm open to either. I'm not really fussed either way. I mean, you got to remember too that even if something is closed source, 70% of the world's closed source software is built on open source. So, like, if you're contributing to open source, I mean, that's why a lot of people contribute to open source in their spare time. Or even like, there's a lot of companies who pay their developers to contribute, a chunk of their time, or even some of them, like the majority of their time, to contribute to open source, because there's so many dependencies on open source software these days. So yeah, if the question is coming from, I'm thinking about going into open source as a full-time gig, it's totally viable.
Great. One question that we have for a lot of our speakers that are coming to talk to our fellows is just a little bit about your background and kind of your career journey to how you got to where you are. So would you give us a brief overview of kind of your career trajectory?
Sure, I do like a whole talk on it. I literally just gave it yesterday too. So I started small country town, literally from the middle of nowhere. Most of my friends are still back there, still doing the same thing. So coming and working in a big city and working for a global tech company is like not the thing from where I come from. Everyone's like, what the heck do you do? So I came to the country, went to the city for uni, did a Bachelor of Science, majored in chemistry. I have an equivalent double major in geology, and also did engineering, mathematics, computer science, psychology as part of my science degree. And I also did ancient history and media studies as my breadth. The reason I chose the university I went to is because I could do all the things. I'm a person who likes doing all the things. So I finished that, did a Master of Media and Comms, and then was headhunted to work for a big science, innovation, and tech precinct as like the community builder, event person. Started working on a whole lot of tech companies, startups, innovation sectors, corporates, building them all together and bringing them all together, what we call this big like innovation melting pot. Through that, I started my own company, started an artificial intelligence company. It's still going. It's still really successful. They did a whole bunch of work with like Audi over in Germany. We're doing a whole bunch of work with, the big supermarkets here in Australia. Some really cool stuff with NVIDIA around deep learning and tech. So I started that in 2016 now. Then step back from that a little bit and let it kind of like take off and do its cool thing. Started working at an electric skateboard company, making these really cool off-road electric skateboards that go like 60k an hour. So pretty awesome. Fun fact, those skateboards were also like using all this IoT connected functionality. So there I started, that's where I really started doing my talks on GitHub and how like the role between like software and hardware and how like they play into one another and the importance of it, which is really cool. All throughout this time, I was running hackathons and giving talks and working with GitHub on the side, kind of like as like running hackathons and building up the like the tech community while I was doing my startups. So yeah, skateboard company. And then when I was finished working with them, I already started my own company as well. So I started my own like consulting company, telling people how to like get a company off the ground, do a startup, run a hackathon. I was giving workshops on like how to pitch your ideas, how to build your ideas, human-centered design thinking, that kind of stuff. So they're really like the kind of soft skills side of technology, which is really exciting. And then from there, I went and started working full-time at GitHub, which is really exciting. So GitHub hired me full-time. But just before that happened, about a year before that happened, I also started working on a electric scooter company. We launched that in November last year on Kickstarter. It was one of the fastest funded Kickstarter campaigns. We hit our target in 43 minutes, which is really exciting. So we're doing, we've got our pre-orders open our website at the moment. So that's rain.co, raine.co if you're interested. We've got pre-orders open. We've got like people from all over the world are buying our scooters, and we've done some competitions. So we gave away a scooter to a guy, I think he came from, I can't remember where, but somewhere really, really far away from us. So like somewhere overseas, like one of the European countries. And then we just did another giveaway last week. We gave away 2 scooters to a guy here in Queensland, actually, which is cool. So yeah, I do all that, and I work on the DevRel team at GitHub. So I get to do a whole lot of cool stuff around tech and the integration of like tech and hardware and soft skills and all this cool kind of stuff that we're building at GitHub. Working on some cool hackathon stuff at the moment. So keep an eye on githubhackathon.com, where we run all our GitHub hackathons, but also where we will be putting up a whole lot of new cool things. So I can't talk too much about it yet. And also, since I'm a streamer and a gamer and I do all my own Twitch streaming and gaming, I have now been doing a whole lot of work on that with GitHub and a bunch of other tech companies as well. So I've been presenting at IBM developer on their Twitch channel, Microsoft developer on their Twitch channel. I'm a Twilio champion as well, so I've been on their Twitch channel. And I do a whole bunch of like live coding and stuff as well. So it's really exciting, and GitHub's getting really involved. So for those of you who are on Twitch or have got Twitch accounts, go and follow. Well, I mean, follow myself if you like, Mish Manners, but go and follow GitHub, because we're doing a whole lot of really cool stuff on there. Like we're doing open source Fridays, how to contribute to code. I was interviewing a maintainer last week or the week before, the maintainer of WordPress, asking them like, how they get involved in, WordPress, how do they start WordPress as a open source project, top tips to contributing to projects, how to go about managing a project. So if you're interested, definitely go and follow GitHub Twitch channel. So yeah, hopefully that's a brief overview.
Yeah, no, that's a lot going on. And I think that's the kind of point that a lot of our fellows are looking for, is it's never one straight shot, right? There's a lot of pivots and trajectory changes over the course of your career. So
definitely.
As the hackathon queen, what is one of your favorite hackathons that you worked on or projects you worked on?
Oh, I love this question. I'm so biased as well, but it still is definitely the GitHub, not the GitHub one, GitHub hackathon run earlier this year. But my favorite hackathon is still the NASA Space Apps Challenge that I ran back in 2016. The reason why it's my favorite is because it was just so crazy and random. So if anyone has ever seen the NASA Space Apps Challenge, the challenges are everything from, build a space solution, design saving thing for the NASA space station, right up to like build this really crazy like VR tech environment for astronauts on Mars. And so the reason I love this hackathon was the diversity of ideas that came out. Like when we had the presentations, we literally had, my team, I ran it, but also contribute, like I was participating at the same time. So my team built a jet-powered rocket that was running on dry ice. And if you switch out the dry ice for toluene, it would actually propel a person. So we're using that as a way to propel astronauts on Mars, because toluene and carbon dioxide react, and you've got a whole lot of carbon dioxide available on Mars. So that was really cool. And then like other teams, like we had one team that was using like machine learning on like this bucket of sand, and they were like throwing things into the bucket, creating craters, and then the machine learning algorithm would work out from the crater what had made the impact. So like they were literally presenting, it was so funny, like all the judges sitting there, they've got like a bucket of sand, they're like throwing like golf balls and basketball, like random things, and like from all different heights as well. We had the guy who won actually built this origami solution that showed how you would save space on the ISS. So that was really cool. So we had like, you know, artificial intelligence doing asteroid to like, you know, an origami solution. We had a lady presented a picture book to show kids how space travel works, and how like different things work on Earth versus Mars. We had people like building really cool like apps to like show which planes are in the air. Like it was just so random, and so like not one single thing was even remotely close to one another. Some of the people who were in that went on to like the global challenges. What I really liked as well was like there was no cash prizes for the hackathon because I just didn't have any money, but we gave out so many like trophies and swag, and like I think more than 50% of the participants like walked away with something, and all the mentors absolutely loved it. I even look at it from like a logistics point of view, it was an absolute like nightmare because there's just so many things happening, but it was like still definitely my favorite hackathon. So yeah.
Any other kind of questions from the group? Final thoughts? All right. Well, I think we will call it a day then.
Awesome. So that is me. You can go and follow me, Mish Manners, on literally every social media platform known to man except TikTok. I'm so against TikTok. So yeah, you can get me on GitHub, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and my blogs as well. So I have hackathonqueen.com and mishmanners.com. Feel free to follow me on all the things. If there's questions you have afterwards or things that you want to know, best place to actually ask me is jump in on my Twitch channel. I am often explaining random crazy things on my Twitch channel. I was saying this like literally the other day. You know, last Friday we were in Fortnite. We like play Fortnite every Friday, and we were literally running around in Fortnite like killing people and getting victory royales, and at the same time explaining to people how to get investment, how to start a company, and what are the best ways to like build relationships with investors so you can get money. And we're like literally doing this as we're like running around, and we're like, woo, victory royale. And then like everyone's like, we have no idea, like this is so cool. Like you're talking, like you give us all this like life advice while Twitch streaming. So best way to find me is there. The reason for that is because I literally get about anywhere between 20 and 50 DMs on random channels every couple of days. So if you DM me on like LinkedIn or Twitter, like I'll probably respond to you, but it might be like out ages away, and it might not be like really in depth. And the response will probably be like, come and chat to me on my Twitch channel. It's just so easy. I can't ignore you on Twitch. It's live. It's like in person. I can talk to you. Also, everyone else can learn at the same time. And it's just really good. Like you get the answer then and there, and you can clarify, and we can have a chat and banter. So yeah, come and chat to me there.
Perfect. We did actually have one last question pop up before we head out, but what would be the pros and or cons working on closed source as compared to open source?
It would really depend on the company and the project you're working for. So obviously one of the big pros of working on open source is that it is freely available for everyone. Everyone can contribute to it. Everyone can use it. And as I said before, 70% of the world's software runs on open source. One of the cons of that is how do you sustain yourself? You know, not all open source projects are being funded. Not all open source projects or not all people have a full-time job that they can then support themselves and then go contribute to open source. So that's one thing to consider. The pros of working on Closed sourced is obviously you're getting paid for it most of the time. You own the IP, you have the IP, you have exclusive access and rights to use that IP and put it where you want to. You can obviously charge a lot of money for it. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's kind of one of those things like, what's the pros and cons of like working and earning money versus volunteering for people? It's like, go do both, which is what a lot of people do. Obviously, the pro of volunteering for people is that you're helping people and it's a community, and, there's people less fortunate than you, but at the end of the day, you still need to be able to support yourself with money because, food and rent actually cost money. So yeah, I mean, everyone is in a different situation. I'm not going to tell anyone like, one way or the other what you need to do. But again, most people run like a hybrid approach. I run a hybrid approach with like everything I do. Some talks I do for free, other ones I charge for. It depends on like what the situation is, the relationships with other people, who I'm doing it for, who I'm representing, like all those kind of things. So it's always a thing to consider. But the cool thing about GitHub is we launched GitHub sponsors last year or the year before now. So there's so many projects being funded on open source now. Like literally one of our top maintainers just tweeted the other day that he's now making over USD $6-figure every, I'm not sure how often it is, but he's making over 6 figures on open source because people are, supporting him for that. So yeah, go check it out. Think about the situation you're in, what you want to do, what you want to build, and go from there.
That's a great analogy of the volunteering aspect there. Perfect. Well, you're doing some great talks, and thanks. So I just want to say thank you again for giving us your time today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. No, thank you so much for having me, and good luck to everyone for all your projects, your hackathons. I know you're in the middle of one now, and congratulations again on getting into this program, and hope the rest of it goes well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Mish.
Bye.